Right now, it's a double-edged sword. It was proposed by the president of Pakistan to President Trump, who has agreed to the ceasefire, and it is designed to give a little breathing room around the entire situation. He obviously is trying to um, give room for everyone to understand what's going on, to see if we can come up with some kind of a solution. Plus, it gives the United States a little bit of a star next to its name because we're the ones that are willing to agree to the ceasefire. So this helps in all areas, and that's we have to now see how Iran is going to react. Well, obviously, this has come along very quickly, so we're still digesting exactly what is happening and what's going on. I would suspect that what he is doing is he's suspending the attacks on the infrastructure, on the power plants and bridges. As far as attacks on other areas, we'll see how that comes along. In the announcement, he said we're allowed to do this because we have achieved almost all military objectives that we were looking for. And this gives the breathing space. Whether we're going to stop attacking other areas, missile production areas, if there's any, launcher sites, um, other military targets, I, I kind of doubt that we're going to suspend that, but it could be part of it. Right now, what has been suspended is the massive attacks that were designated to happen at 8 o'clock Washington time this evening, or in about an hour. Anything is possible. Right now, what he said is we achieved our military goals. The nuclear profile, the ballistic missiles, the removal of support for proxy terrorist organizations. That is a political goal, not necessarily a military. What we have done is we have basically stopped Iran from being a military threat, although it still has missiles and it can still continue to fire missiles indiscriminately at Israel and other areas in the neighborhood. Can we eventually come to an agreement with Iran? I think that's possible. I don't think it's likely at this point. I think we have to look at how Iran reacts to all of this, and that's going to be the major telling point. How is Iran going to react? Iran says yes, okay, thank you for the breathing space. Let's negotiate. Or are they going to react and say, "Ah, we beat Great Satan, America, and they're running away"? So a lot of this is going to depend on what happens, say, in the next 24 to 40 years. And that's going to be part of what goes on in the next 2 weeks. That's going to be okay. We've stopped bombing your infrastructure. Let's continue to discuss the uranium situation, and that's going to be a non-starter, I think, with Iran. But that's what we're going to do. The Strait of Hormuz will be opened. It should never have been closed. It's an international waterway, um, but we'll see what happens. Next area that we're going to take a very close look at, and the president is going to take a close look at, is how the Iranian government now reacts to its civilian population, which has been a little bit non-patriotic, if you want to use those terms, against the regime. So yeah, the uranium is going to ultimately have to be removed from Iran, and that's what's going to be discussed in the next 2 weeks. I personally do not believe there's a possibility of any long-term agreement with the current regime in Tehran. It's going to be day by day, week by week, and this is the problem that we face. Uh, both sides have things that they need to achieve. They have their own agendas, and some of them are so completely opposite that it's going to be difficult. A long-term agreement based on what Iran wants which is a guarantee that they'll never be attacked, which is nothing anybody can give, that they're going to get reparations, which is something they're not going to have, and that their military, they continue to go on. These are the problems that we're facing. The Iranian, from the U.S. perspective, the Iranian demands are basically not fulfillable. From the Iranian standpoint, the U.S. demands are also, in some cases, out of the question. They'll talk about the nuclear program. They will not talk about the ballistic missiles. So is it going to be long term? No, it's going to be temporary. Well, and how long temporary is going to be the question. I'm sure that President Trump talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu prior to the announcement. At least I hope he did. There's going to be that situation where there are opposing viewpoints from both Washington and Jerusalem, and this is what we're looking at right now. And so this is an ongoing discussion. The United States is going to take into consideration Israelis' fear of the existential threat that Iran poses, and that's going to be part of all the negotiation. They absolutely will have a role in this ceasefire, and this is one of the things that we're looking at closely. I mean, we do know that Saudi Arabia, that the UAE has pressured Trump not to end the war, that they want the regime changed. These are back channel negotiations. We know that Qatar is also in a situation where they're not particularly thrilled with the way Iran has handled the situation, the attacks in Qatar and other areas where they have attacked infrastructure, the attacks on the U.S. facilities in and around, even in Erbil, attacks by drone attacks that I think recently just killed a young couple in Erbil. Now, the question is whether that was a direct Iranian attack or an attack by Iranian proxies in Iraq. Is something that has to be decided. So, no, the Gulf countries are going to absolutely have a voice in what's going on. I don't think it's a victory for either side. I think it's just returning to a status quo. It's a victory for the United States in the fact that they have stood up to a lot of the opposition they have faced both internally and externally, and have shown that their ability to stay the course. And that again, can they keep the Strait of Hormuz open? Here's the question. In 2 weeks, are we going to be back to the same situation? So, again, it's a victory. Maybe called a sporadic victory, but it's a victory. I don't. Senator Graham is a very intelligent person and very close to President Trump. But I don't know if we, at the end of everything, at the Strait of Hormuz, can be left solely in the hands of Iran. And there is a diplomatic solution, and we have to see how that happens. We do know that part of the strait is beyond the border of Iran, that it does border Oman, and we'll see what that happens. And as we delay and as we push forward and look at things, what's going to happen also is that the world is going to have to look at, can they bypass the Strait of Hormuz? Can they cut a channel? Can they use the East-West pipeline in Saudi Arabia to overcome that? Can they use pipelines from Basra, Kirkuk into Turkey to bypass what's coming out of the strait? I don't think Iran has done themselves any favor with the closing the straits, but we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, Iran will not be allowed to have a nuclear program. That is not even a consideration. From the ballistic missile standpoint, Iran is going to have to give up any of its long-range ballistic missiles, and it's going to have to be under some kind of international control. They've already shown that they do have a ballistic missile that can reach Europe, the European capitals, and so this has got to be taken away. How do we kind of Iran who we want. We want an Iran that is basically for Iranians, that is not a threat to the region, that is not a threat to world peace. That is the ultimate. And the question then comes, can the Iranian regime as it exists today uh, be adjusted to that kind of Iran? Or ultimately, is there going to have to be some form of a change in the structure? Well, as I stare into my crystal ball, the how can it happen? Uh, a couple of different ways. Iran can suddenly realize that it needs to happen. That's not a big situation that we look at. The Iranian people can finally rise up, and if there's enough change from the Iranian security services, I'm talking about the army itself, of the Bashish, the IRGC, if it's enough of them that will join in to overturn the government. That's another way. And the third way is a regional uh, boots on the ground, with or without the support of the United States and Israel, that will ultimately forcefully overthrow the regime. This is the one area that we're trying to avoid, but it's still going to be in the cards. The big change that has to happen inside of Iran, is that ultimately Iran has got to come to the conclusion itself that that it cannot win. Right now, I think one of the problems we have is that Iran is certain of its own victory, and that it can withstand any further assaults by the United States and Israel and the world. Uh, what has to happen then, as I said, is that they have to understand that they cannot continue on the way they are, and must change their relationship, not just with the United States, even with their own neighboring countries. They have to stop trying to bully uh, the, the, uh, the Gulf states, and they come to a conclusion of being a good neighbor. Can this happen without an actual regime change? Don't know. Don't think so. Uh, but that is the ultimate. That is what we're looking for. Uh, I think ultimately the last word has to be is probably going to be Trump, or hopefully the last word will come from the Iranian people themselves, um, who will have enough of their government. Tehran will have input into it. But as far as how this is going to end up, I think Trump is going to have the final decision. Is going to make the final decision. They're going to have a voice. There's no doubt about that. The question is, as we degrade Iran's capabilities, and the Iraqi militias that are obviously, as you said, backed by Iran, um, and are dependent on Iran for their supplies, their training, the money, and their arms. Um, this is going to have an impact on. And yes, they're going to continue to fight, and unfortunately, uh, they're going to be somewhat of a bigger problem than Iran itself, uh, because they are not directly under attack. Uh, so this is something that Baghdad's going to have to deal with. But as I said, it's going to come down to how long can they sustain themselves if Iran is taken out of the picture.